We're going to start off today with hand cutting some dovetails, laying out our important tools, our crucial tools. These are a dovetail saw, bench chisels, marking gauge, a dovetail gauge, and a small block plane. We're going to start off laying out the two boards, how they're going to go together. We'll draw a small arch, label those two corners A. This is marked on the outside of the joint, allowing me to realign them and know that these were the two pieces that I meant to put together. Next, I'm going to take my marking gauge, set it to the thickness of the material that I'm going to be using. I actually set it just a freckle below the thickness of the material. There are many with different ways to do it. This is the way I do it. You can set it at the thickness of the material. You can set it a freckle above the thickness of the material. I choose to set it just a freckle below the thickness of the material. I've used a simple scrap piece of wood to find the center of the board, and I'm now laying out where the edges of the tails are going to be. This is a simple process. Do not overcomplicate it. After laying out the tails and the pins, you need to cut them. Relax. Learn to use your saw. Be comfortable with it. It doesn't matter whether you use a Japanese saw or a Western saw. Become accustomed to how it works. Best way to learn how to do this is make many cuts, relax, make mistakes so that you can make adjustments to your body mechanics and how your saw cuts. After your cuts are done, we're going to flip the board on its side and cut the shoulders off. I cut just a small bit away from the knife line and then come back later on and clean that up with a chisel. Again, there's something peaceful and relaxing about cutting dovetails. It's a great way to learn basic woodworking skills, practice, get good at this, apply these ideas, these skill sets to other woodworking processes that you want to work on. After you're done cutting with the saw, you need to chisel out the waste. You begin this by defining the knife lines that you've left with your marking gauge. You define them by just lightly chiseling in and making a small step. All of your chiseling from that point on will be set in a little bit away from that knife line. As your chisels are pounded in, they'll have a tendency to put pressure on, and if you have them too close to that knife line, you'll get kind of a squiggly line. You won't have that nice straight line that your marking gauge left. Your goal is to preserve that nice straight line that the marking gauge left. When you're chiseling out, you're going to set your chisel a freckle away from that knife line. I'm just going to use the palm of my hand to do this chiseling out, but you can certainly use a small mallet if you prefer. I'm going to do my chiseling from both sides until the waste is completely removed, and then I'll come back and clean right up to that knife line, never having to go back to the surface. After I've chiseled out the waste, I'm going to go back to the shoulders and clean up to that knife line one more time. We're going to clean out or clean the shoulders using our chisel. We'll always be pushing the chisel into the work and never leaving the work. As soon as we leave the work with our chisel, we're going to cause tear out and splinters. So our goal is to get a nice clean line, again maintaining the knife line that we've already done. Next, we're going to take our tail board and set it in the vise. And we'll put it at the level of a bench dog, just as something to keep it off the bench top when we lay the tail board over the top to be able to do our marks. I use a pencil for most of my marks and dovetails, and I found that as I get a little older, the pencil is an awful lot easier to see than a knife line is. It doesn't hinder the accuracy. What causes problems with accuracy is not remembering and not being cognizant of what you made your marks with and where those marks are. For instance, these marks are outside of where your cut has to be for a tight joint. That idea, that understanding is essential for this sort of joinery or any sort of joinery in general. You need to be aware of what you're doing. Main lines, these are created from the pencil and using the tail board as its mark. Once we have those lines, we're going to proceed to cut. And you notice I put a couple X's to help me remember where to take my material off. Again, using the saw takes practice and lots of work and lots of time. And here you can see that that pencil line lies outside of where your joint needs to be cut. So that pencil line needs to be saved. You need to save the pencil line. Practice with the saw. Continue to work. You're seeing that alignment, that idea, and that's just perfect. You can just barely see the pencil line, and that's what you want. Do all your cuts like that. Get good at that. Make mistakes. That's the only way you're going to get good at it.
I use my thumb a lot.
Once those cuts are made, you need to chisel out the waste. Again, I'm going to define that knife line using the backside of my chisel. And how you take the waste out is really however you want. I prefer to use a chisel. Lots of people use a coping saw. People use a band saw. But the idea is to get the waste out and maintain that nice sharp line. Maintain that marking gauge knife line that you've saved. Here's a quick video of me establishing that knife line.
Someone really cares.
Sorry, it's a little blurry. And then once that knife line is marked or preserved, and then you can start chiseling away at it and hammering it. And I've picked up a different chisel than you've seen me use so far. This is a mortising chisel. I want to get the waste out as fast as I can. I've set the chisel a freckle away from the knife line. It's not exactly on it. It's a little bit off because as I pound the chisel in, it's going to push back. It's going to, if I had it right on the line, it would push back into the line and mess it up. And it doesn't really take long to get through this. This is hickory. It cuts fairly nicely, fairly smoothly.
Wow. I didn't hit that harder than I thought.
After you've chopped it out, clean it up. Again, we did this from both sides. So we're going to clean up our chiseling as best we can. Trying to get a nice flat line.
So really two different techniques you've seen with the chisel.
On this one you can see I've left a little bit extra waste there to be removed than when we had to pare it away.
A lot of things that you can do in woodworking other than hand-cut dovetails that will give you so much practice in things that are critical to everything you do in woodworking. Cutting to a line, measuring and layout, and
your goal is that nice clean shelf. Don't try to undercut it or overcut it. Just make the cut and make it flat. You know, you have a tendency to undercut a little bit just because of the way the chisel likes to cut. As you lay the tailboard back over the top, you can instantly see the fit. You can instantly tell whether it's going to fit. Here we've got a little tightness now.
I don't even need to.
I think in this video you can see where on this cut I've left quite a bit of wood on the other side of that pencil line. You should be at the point, or you want to get to the point where you can see that and make the correction without an infinite number of test fits. Don't do this. Don't be this person that is infinitely testing their fits. Have confidence in yourself. Have confidence in yourself that you know that won't fit now because you haven't cut it right. When you're paring, pare across the grain, not with the grain. When you go with the grain, you're going to have a tendency to follow the grain and tear it out. So again, we're going to go down across the grain. Do not go with the grain. And you want to get it cleaned up. Here's our first test fit. Fit pretty well. We're going to do a little bit of hand planing. This was a pretty board. The hand planing cleans up the board, gets rid of the marking gauge lines, and makes the whole thing look absolutely gorgeous. If you have any questions, please come see us. Check out the website or drop by the shop. Thank you.